So hello there guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the DNF1 F1 podcast. I hope that you guys are doing well and staying safe as always. Not long to go now until the F1 season gets underway for 2023, and whilst there are plenty of stories that will unfold over the course of the season, we still have the small matter of providing you guys with the regular content that we do up until this point. And of course, perhaps answering a few of the questions that we sort of led on with our predictions earlier in the season. But before we get into that, just a quick thank you guys to all of you that choose to subscribe to us at DNF1, whether it be on the YouTube channel or whether it be on your favorite podcasting platforms. So thank you to everybody that has chosen to support us thus far. And we appreciate every single one of you that choose to support us in the coming weeks and months ahead. Joining me on this episode, a guest I'm really excited to talk to and play a little bit of an F1 themed game that you might be familiar with, but we'll get to that momentarily. We have the brilliant Nyasha, one half of the Quick Stop F1 podcast team, joining us on the show. First of all, Nyasha, thank you so much for joining me on the show. Big fan of what yourself and Tandy do on there. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. This should have happened last year, really, but we were just so busy, and otherwise we would have done it last year. So I'm glad we finally got it done this year. Thanks for inviting me on. Thanks for having me on. See, we're both wearing our merch as well. Look at that. Look at that. That's that branded stuff.
I'm glad that you're wearing your merch actually on the show. I mean, obviously, I don't want to be presumptuous and ask you to do that. You dress how you want to, but no, it's really good to see. And of course, we got to flex that merch any time that we can, really. But obviously, yourself and Tandy, Quick Stop F1. I mean, I really, really enjoy the show, and I think it's definitely something that breaks the mold on what a normal F1 fan-made podcast should be, and perhaps rewriting the rule book, if you like. What was the inspiration on that, if you don't mind? And of course, this is coming from someone that loves the intros as well, so obviously I'm quite keen to learn from the master, if I may.
No, you know what? That was a really good intro from yourself, and I like how you thanked all your subscribers, because in all honesty, we're nothing without our listeners, followers, and so forth. And I think originally when I started the podcast, I'll be honest, when I started the podcast, I used to listen to a lot of Missed Apex podcast. And I wanted to kind of be like Spanners, I guess. And I was like, right, I'm going to make a podcast, and it's going to be really, I always wanted it to be like a bit more casual than Missed Apex, but I wanted it to be like, just like slick, informative. And then I guess a good story to tell. I don't think a lot of people know this, but me and Tandy had never met before we did the podcast. And I asked her to come and do a podcast with me because she was the only one who would reply to my tweets when I used to tweet about Formula 1. So I was like, let's do a podcast. And in all honesty, as soon as I saw what vibe Tandy was on, I was like, oh, okay, we can be a bit more outlandish, and we can be a bit more carefree. And I think what you said there about us rewriting how fan-made F1 content, I feel really proud of that, because I think that we are quite, some people might find us crude, and some people might think we're a bit over the top, but I think we give a voice to people who think the same things as us. So it wasn't on purpose. I think Tandy and her spirit made me feel more comfortable in being myself. And I think both of us together have just been able to create a really good product for people. And then I think we've been able to build on that with the short videos that we make, and kind of building out the visual aspects, and all of those things coming together have created a really cool thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think you've summed it up absolutely brilliantly. And to be honest, I'm absolutely surprised to hear that yourself and Tandy didn't know each other before starting the show. I mean, the chemistry that you both have on that show, if you don't mind me saying, is absolutely amazing. I mean, I don't mind saying this, but the guys I know, I've known Courtney ever since we were at secondary school together. Met him on the first day. Lee, I met him in my first proper job when we were 18. So we've known each other a long time. And awesome. There's a natural chemistry there. Obviously, compounded by the fact that we're F1 fans. That's where the common ground starts from. But to hear that from yourself and Tandy, and you guys get on so well, it's almost as if like, wow, these guys have known each other almost as long as I've known my guys. So honestly, I have to say that's massively impressive. And I love what you guys do.
Thank you. No, honestly, it's like I've gained like a little sister now, and because of the age gap between us, and yeah, no, the chemistry is great, and I think being able to feed off each other like that uh really, yeah, it helps create. And I think on Tandy, I think for there to be like a black woman in F1 who is as funny as she is and as quotable as she is and as relatable as she is, the product, our product, Quiz Up F1, it wouldn't be anything without. I think it'd be a lot poorer without that. And yeah, I'm really proud to be able to. I feel lucky that I was able to find someone like Tandy to do the podcast with, because it'd be much poorer without her.
No, absolutely. And I think correct me if at any point if I'm wrong in this, but
Yeah,
I believe
sure.
diversity is probably the most important thing going on in this, in not only in the sport but also from a media perspective as well.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind me saying, you talked about Missed Apex, a show that I really enjoy as well, and also learn a
Yeah.
lot as well. I think we all,
Yes.
in our own way, want to try and be like Richard Spanners, but it's one of those where it's so nice to see so many other creators from so many different cultures and backgrounds. I'm
Yeah.
proud of my heritage and where I come from, but I know that so many shows that came before the likes of Quick Stop and so many others would just be people sitting in front of a microphone that would look like me, for lack of a better way of putting it. And
Yeah.
that's not bad or good. It's different and it's fine,
No.
but
Yeah.
it's so nice to see so many other different creators from different backgrounds, not only joining in on the sport, but flourishing and thriving. And as you said, taking it to new levels that you probably didn't imagine possible when you started out.
Oh man, completely. I think you've really summed it up well in that, Formula One is in its, on its own, there's one black driver, the backgrounds of the people that come from it, even if you're looking at, how much money people need just to get into the sport, it's inherently undiverse, right? And I think one of the things that I used to watch F1 on my own. I used to tweet into the abyss. It's almost as if F1 Twitter is like Narnia. It's behind the wardrobe, and then all of a sudden you go in and you're like exposed to the fact that this is like a really global sport. Obviously, it goes all over the world, but the fan base is all over the world. The diversity of the fans is crazy. The amount of women who, I'll be honest, when I first started making content, I did not think that so many women would be listening to our podcast, but there's so many girls and women who listen to the show and who enjoy F1. And I think that's the good thing about the sport. I guess the direction the sport is going from like a content and like a fan perspective is that, you know, with with Drive to Survive and with like the increased social media presence, it's allowing a podcast like ours to thrive, because I guess if someone comes into the sport and they're wondering who to watch, there are people who look like them in the sport that they can identify with. And there's so many more other than us now. I remember when us and Pit Stop Fracas started, we were really the only ones. And I think you look at it now, there's such a diverse range of podcasts in so many ways. So yeah, it's super dope to see, and long may it continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully your show, and of course Pit Stop Frackers, and thanks for mentioning them, of course, because I almost forgot them. I apologise, guys, if you ever tune
No,
into this.
don't worry
But
about that.
no, honestly, I love the energy, and that's something I love about your show as well. It's a real rich energy, no pun intended, of course, but
I love it.
loud, proud, we're here, we're there, we want to be heard. And I really do enjoy that, because I sometimes try and take lessons from that, to have a bit of camaraderie of my panel,
Yeah.
and take that energy, like you're really having fun, almost as if you don't realize you're recording a show. It's just a chat with your mates about F1 in this case, or other topics. I mean, of course, you guys are really great at bringing up the big issues affecting the sport, not necessarily what's happening on the track half the time as well, which is obviously a big
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
I mean, what was the
It's
inspiration behind that energy, if you don't mind me asking?
honestly, it's just natural. It's honestly, it's just like, I think, like I was saying, I think I wanted it to go. I think in the beginning, in my mind, it was, I wanted it to be a lot more formal. But the energy Tandy brings, and then our energy together, when we just get together, we're both very, we just love cracking jokes. We both talk in memes. We both just want to have fun, and we just want it to be fun. And then the more we did it, the more people, I would say that the more outlandish we got, and the more that we kind of went down that route, the bigger we got. Because obviously, I guess in a sense, when we were sharing clips of the podcast, people would be like, "Oh my god, this is hilarious," and then they would go and watch it. So I think for us, we realized that okay, we can just be ourselves. We can just make fun and make light of everything, and we can crack jokes. And I think sometimes you need that. I think there's a space for everyone, right? There's a space for, you've got Bryson's tech podcast now that he's got, and you got Missed Apex, which is that like Sky Sports light kind of analysis on F1, and then you've got us who are just absolutely bananas, and and our very light touch on the technical aspect, and probably light touch on details of the race, but I think there's a space for everyone within that. And I think for us, what was important was it wasn't to answer your question, it wasn't a deliberate thing. It's just something that came natural. And I think that's what I think comes across and endears us to our listeners, is that we're as genuine as possible. There's nothing fabricated, there's nothing forced. This is just who we are. These are the characters that we have, and luckily, people vibe with that. Some people don't, but that's fine. But some people do, and we're really fortunate. And I'm sure you as well. Like, we're very fortunate to be able to do this, like this thing that we love. This thing a lot. We like, just to be clear, this is still, I still have a normal job. I still, have to do this part time. My spare room is set up in the studio. You sacrifice time, you sacrifice money to make these things happen. But it's a privilege. It's a privilege because you get that reaction from people, of people enjoying your content, and there's not many feelings in the world that beat that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you summed it up perfectly recently when you put a tweet out, just explaining the basic business of how podcasting at our level kind of works, with all due respect. There's not a massive amount of money in it unless you're signed up to someone. So for a lot of us out there, it literally is a passion project. If it comes to something a bit more than that, fantastic. But if not, doesn't matter. We love what we do, and that's why we do it.
Yeah. And look, let me tell you now, that business of podcasting thing was like, because I do think some people think I'm going to do a podcast, I'm gonna, within like 10 episodes, I'm gonna be making loads of money, and I'll be able to be a full-time podcaster, because I'm seeing full-time podcasters with like Spotify deals and this, that, and the other. Let me tell you, it is difficult. We made, if I'm gonna like put a figure on it, YouTube and Spotify or like ad revenue combined, I think was maybe a tenth max of the money that we made last year. The rest was from the live shows and the merch. So if we were just solely podcasting, we wouldn't have made any money at all. Probably at a loss when you think about equipment, time, hosting fees, stuff like that. So yeah, like you have to really love doing this. You have to really want to do this, and fortunately, we do.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing. And I think if there's any advice for any new potential podcasters out there that want to do what we do, or pick their own niche if they want to, depending on what they're interested in, do your homework, guys. There's plenty of great content out there, and really ask yourself if you want to do it, because of course there are so many great shows out there, but they don't last very long because they realize it's not as easy to make money from it as some might seem. And some people that come in, brilliant stuff that they do, some of them already have a following straight away. So some shows that do so well, for all the right reasons, sometimes, it does help you have a bit of a following, but it doesn't matter. You build that up as you go along. So it's not always as easy as some may make it seem.
But what I'd also say on that, Adam, is that don't always think, I'll give you an example. So when I used to make food content before I was, well, kind of like the back end of me making food content. And then I started the F1 content. And then I realized the F1 content is what I really want to do. And I think I spent years doing food content, waiting for the right time to release merchandise or waiting for the right time to, I don't know, like do a live show or, it took me 5 years and then I did like a cookbook and whatever. And but I was always looking at people who had like 10 times the following that I did, and people who were much bigger than me, and wanting those numbers without realizing actually I had a great community when I was doing the food content, and I could have leveraged that more. And the same goes with Quickstop. I would say that numbers wise, we're nowhere near other podcasts. There's probably other podcasts. There's probably, I would say, a good, I don't think we're even for listenership top 20 Formula One podcasts that are out there. But what we do have is an organic audience that really like what we do, that really support us, that allow us to sell merch, that allow us to do live shows. I think we were the first F1 podcast to do a live show, pretty sure. We're probably the first F1 podcast who are selling streetwear inspired merch. And that's because we've got listenership that really want to support us. And it doesn't matter that they're not massive in terms of like us having like tens of thousands on YouTube and tens of thousands of downloads, although we are close to the double figures on downloads per month. But yeah, I would say concentrate on your community, concentrate on the people that like you, that follow you, follow back the people that follow you, interact with them. You'll end up learning about what they like and what they don't like, and they'll become like a family. And I think having a small engaged community is much, much better and much more easier to translate into monetary gain than, we've seen TikTok people who've got hundreds of thousands of followers and then they release something and it tanks. Why? Because no one actually cares about them. They're just there to watch, and what you want is people who care about you. Sorry, that was my like community rant. It's just really important because I don't want to put people off.
No, this is important. Content. No, this is important. And I think, hopefully, a lot of people listening, whether they listen to my show or listen to your show, or anyone really, those are important lessons. And, we can all apply that. I mean, I can certainly apply that to my own show, really. There's a lot to be said there. I do want to talk about the live show, if I may, because you beat me to the punch man. There. I think you're right. Probably the first independent podcast out for F1 anyway, that did a live show. I mean, first of all, what was that like? Because that sounds absolutely crazy, mate. And congratulations as well.
It's insane. It's crazy. So, we sell tickets. We sold out the first. So we did 50 tickets for the first show. We sold out in like 36 hours, I think. And I think at the time I was like, this is crazy. And then we did the same venue again for the second show for Abu Dhabi. So I think the first one was Hungary. So what's that? July before the summer break.
The summer, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, literally like 31st of July it was. That's sold out in 36 hours. Then we did Abu Dhabi. So what's that? 5 months later?
Yeah, about right.
Yeah, on November 20th. And it sold out in 4.5 hours. Wow. And it's just humbling that so many people wanted to come and look at it. And I'm sure you won't mind me saying this, like Aldous came and he got inspired, and now him and Tomo are doing a live show, and I'm so happy for them. That's gonna be incredible. The F1 arcade. But they're mad. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's crazy. So you've got 50 people all watching an F1 race. People are cheering, and you know what it is? You get like, there's things that you feel when you're watching F1 and you might shout or something, and you might think something, and you're like, I don't know, you always think like, oh, am I actually feeling that? Is it just me who thinks like that? But then you're like in a room with like all these other people who love the sport, and everywhere I was going, people were just talking about F1. I was like, I've never been in a room where people are just talking about F1 and people love the sport. People are cheering, shouting, and it's an incredible day. It's an incredible experience. the live podcast is scary, but it's fun, and you get that interaction from people. And I think it's just cool for people to. We live in such an online community that it's nice that we are able to put faces to names, and people are able to meet up with people that they talk to all the time, and they become friends. And it's just, I'm a big believer in taking that online community and building it offline. So how can we take our online community and give real life experience, whether that's t-shirts, whether that's the live shows, whether that's us, doing some other things that we've got planned in the future. So yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy, and it's humbling as well.
I love this. I feel like I should be taking notes or something like that. But look, I mean, of course, we could go on all day about this.
Yeah,
but I mean, first of all, I forgot to ask, and this is terrible of me, because normally when we have new guests on, Nyasha,
yeah,
I usually break the ice with a question to get the fans of the show to learn a little bit more about yourself in this regarding your F1 interest. Of course, no secret, judging by the merch, for anyone watching this on YouTube, where your allegiances lie, and anyone that's familiar with your content. But I'm going to ask the question anyway.
yeah,
And
sure.
if I was to give you any F1 car in history, and you are the GOAT, you are the Sir Lewis Hamilton, the Ayrton Senna, and the Michael Schumacher driving this, whoever your allegiances lie with, for those listening, of course, and I could allow you to drive this round any circuit in the world. Doesn't have to be an F1 circuit, could be your local car park for you wanted, or your kart track. What car are we driving, and where are we driving it?
It's got to be the W11, and I would love to drive the W11 around. Oh, that's a good question. Probably Sao Paulo. Interlagos, just because it's one of my favorite tracks. It's always a great circuit. I've always wanted to go to Brazil. Potentially going to go this year, maybe. So I think, yeah, the W11, because you've got the DAS system on there. You've got it was the first black Mercedes. It was the obviously like a really important year, 2020, with Lewis kind of stepping out of his shell in terms of talking about equality and diversity. So yeah, out of all those things, I think W11 round into Lagos. Why not?
Yeah, I love that answer. And, Interlagos is a great circuit, one of my favourite circuits, and a circuit that, it's amazing. Obviously, yourself following Sir Lewis Hamilton's career for so long. And for me, following his career from day one in F1, to go from almost, you can forgive him for how things played out, obviously weren't his fault, but being public enemy number one after 2008, where he won his first world title, and obviously by default of being the rival to their main guy, Felipe Massa, to now being the hero, the honorary citizen, if you like, on top of that. I mean, that is such a turnaround, inspirational, and arguably, I don't mind saying this because I'm not a massive Sir Lewis Hamilton fan, but I can certainly appreciate how he's changed hearts and minds there, to the point where I can't think of any F1 driver in history that's had an impact on the sport on a global stage in the same way that he has.
Yeah, and I think I think people might say that they might point at Senna, or they might point at Schumacher in a way, but I think
Well, it
I think you have to
transcends beyond
look.
sport, doesn't it?
Thank you, that's what I was looking for. He transcends the sport, and we're seeing, I think Checo was on Jimmy Fallon the other day or something, and it's like, you have to remember, Lewis was on American talk shows. Like, he's been on that since he left McLaren, pretty much. So what's that, 2013? So for like the last 10 years, Lewis has been the one person that, if someone didn't know anything about Formula One, they would know who Lewis Hamilton was. And especially someone who is not from Britain. If someone is overseas and they know a driver that's not even from their country, even if they've got drivers from their country in the sport, I think it shows just how what a phenomenal job he's done in transcending the sport and bringing. He was carrying it on his back for a long time. I think until Drive to Survive, he really was carrying it on his back. And I think that's because he was the first one, I would say, to really embrace social media, to really show us sides of him that people wouldn't necessarily know about. And luckily now, with younger drivers increasing social media, but also Drive to Survive, everyone's got that chance to display their personality now, and so more people can see, oh, I like that driver, I want to follow that driver for reasons outside of how they perform in the car, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely, and I couldn't agree with you more on that one. Of course, before we talk a little bit about F1 in 2023, got to ask the
Yeah.
question, one Arsenal fan to another, is it our year? Is it our year, mate? Are we going to win the
Oh,
league?
it's happening, bro. And you know what? I've been saying it since September. Like, I could just feel it. I could feel it. I could feel it. And I was lucky enough to be in a box seat for the Liverpool game. And um, I just remember beating Liverpool, and I was jumping up and down the street saying like, "And now you're gonna believe us, we're gonna win the league." And my friend was like, "No, you can't say it." But I just think we're a different team this year. We're a completely different team. We are consistent, even if like we lose as we have done, Everton and United. You can see how we were trying to play, and I think 9 times out of 10, the way that we play will result in a win. And I think also, this isn't the City of old. This is a City which is clearly not at their best. And sorry, 2 seconds, Teddy. My dog's just licking the wall. Sorry, what are you doing, bro? Sorry. What are you doing? He was literally just lick. I was like, I could hear him licking. I thought he was licking himself, and he was they're just licking the walls. What are you doing? I'm gone. What's wrong with you? So yeah, we're gonna win a league basically.
Yeah, for those listening and not seeing what's going on, don't worry. Nyasha's dog's not licking themselves on screen or anything like that. So you're not missing out on anything.
You're not missing out on anything.
No.
Apologies, my dog was mad.
But no, I'm a believer too. I couldn't have imagined it was going to be as good as it was this year. I definitely thought to myself, yeah, top 4 is definitely doable considering how we narrowly missed out last year. But no, there's something about this team that is definitely different to the Arsenal of old, and we've got to believe. But
we've got to believe. Hey, I'll see you at the parade.
Yeah, I'll certainly be lining up. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But look, we'll get back to the F1 stuff before some of our non-Arsenal listeners decide to tune out. 2023, obviously a big year. Perhaps some level of redemption is in order, perhaps for Mercedes. Obviously, there was a lot of hope how last season, and despite the fact that Sir Lewis Hamilton didn't win a race last season, first time in his career, which is incredible to think, and just how good he's been. What's the story for 2023 looking for you, Nyasha? Is it going to be a year where we may see Mercedes and Sir Lewis Hamilton return to the front, or are we expecting Red Bull to be dominant, but perhaps with the occasional challenge from themselves, and even Ferrari as well?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? I think Mercedes will be closer. And you have to remember as well, Red Bull have got less wind tunnel time. So, but by all intents and purposes, they could have switched focus to this season's car halfway through last year, the way it was going. So I think Red Bull will still be fastest. I think Ferrari will be faster as well. I still think Mercedes will be third, but closer. And I think it will be a test of who can develop their car to catch Red Bull, because Red Bull essentially will not be able to develop their car this season. So, or not as much as they would have wanted to, with the cost cap and obviously with the fact that they've got less wind tunnel time. So, yeah, no, it's interesting. I hold out hope that Mercedes will be good enough if they could take the pace that they had in Brazil into the first race of the season. I think that would be awesome. I think most likely what will happen is I think they'll be about a tenth and a half off to begin with, and then develop the car into it. It's just a case of whether they can develop their car early enough for Lewis to still be in a title fight, and George potentially. So I think we'll have to see. Ferrari, I think, are going to be dark prancing horses. I really do think that the pace they had at the start of the season wasn't a joke, and they chucked away a lot of points, didn't they? So hopefully we just have a 3-way title, and that could be incredible. But I do think it'll be Ferrari and Red Bull at the front again, and with Mercedes closer, but having to develop the car.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And that's something that I mentioned in my predictions. As much as I'd want to see a 3-way title fight, At the most likely, it's probably going to be 2024, but I really want it to be closer. And that's a good point as well with Red Bull. Of course, they would have had a bit more time to develop in the not the off season, because obviously they were dominating by so much they could afford to do that. But with that budget cap violation that they made, and obviously the restrictions that have been imposed on them as a result, or the sanctions, if you like, it could affect them later on in the season. So it might be 2024, but who knows? We may get a freeway title fight. I'm sure a lot of us would enjoy that, regardless of who wins, really. But we'll see. So, Nyasha, of course, main reason why we got you on the show, as much as I love talking to you about Arsenal, Quick Stop, and Formula One, more Arsenal in this case, we've got you on to join me in a little bit of a game, something that we did on the show a little while back with my panel at the time. I want to run some of these questions by you. So, of course, guys, if you are listening and this is the first time that you've seen us do this, then play along. Let me know your answers in the comments section. Let me know your answers on our social media if you take part. And we're going to play a little bit of Would You Rather. Now, for those of you that haven't heard of the game Would You Rather, we present different questions, 2 possible answers, and you just have to choose which one of those you would go for. But some of them might be a bit more thought-provoking than others, and some not so much. But we'll see what Nyasha has in store for us in terms of a response. So, Nyasha, without further ado, are you ready to play F1 Would You Rather?
I'm very ready. Sorry, Tandy just texted me. I was like, what are you texting me, Tandy?
Bring her on the show.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Awesome. So I'm going to start with a fairly straightforward, easy one to sort of warm this up. But would you rather have Ayrton Senna's F1 career or Alain Prost's F1 career?
What a question. I would rather have. You know what? I think I'd rather have Ayrton Senna's career, because I'd rather be like a fan favorite, and to have that kind of cult following and to be revered the way Senna is. I feel sorry for Alan Prost, because I feel like he gets skipped over in conversations so much. I think technically, I think he was probably like a superior driver to Senna in my eyes, but Senna just had that raw speed, and also that spirit that was like almost like Verstappen. That was like, unless you get out of the way, we are going to crash, basically. And which is ironic, me saying that I like that, given what I've just said. But no, I think for me, I'd rather have Senna's career, just purely because of the story of where he comes from, the way that he was revered by his home fans, his story. The Senna documentary is one of my favorite documentaries. So I would say that I would rather, even though there's less titles, I'd rather have Senna's career.
Yeah, it's a great one to start off with, because I like you, I have the utmost respect for Ayrton Senna, what he achieved and what he was revered for as a driver. Technically, I think you'd have to argue that perhaps only Sir Lewis Hamilton could challenge him in terms of all-time talent behind the wheel and technical mastery. But you have to appreciate the fact that Alain Prost was a great driver, not necessarily the fastest, but always a genius. Probably only Niki Lauda and then Michael Schumacher, to a degree, was as brilliant in terms of not the technical side, but the brain working at 150 miles an hour all the time. Yeah. And that was the thing that would win you world championships, not just the outright speed. So there's a great dimension to argue on both sides. But great answer on that one. So that was a nice little warm-up one. I thought I'd get the cogs going for you. So next one, would you rather be the most popular driver on the grid but never win a Grand Prix, or be unpopular and be a serial race winner? Now, guys listening in, you can chuck in your own driver names to compare all you want. I'm not going to throw that in because I don't want people reacting negatively.
Why am I unpopular? Can I I need to know what has made me unpopular before I answer this question.
Well, let's see. I mean, your driving style's probably a bit too erratic, unforgiving, or not naming names here. Nothing like, Nikita Mazepin levels or anything like that, or nothing political, but people just don't like you. They don't like the way that you talk to the press. You're not popular on social media. You're controversial, and anything that you can think of, mate. We're just spitballing at this point.
I would say I'd still take the wins and be unpopular. Look, we're unpopular. Quick Sub F1 is unpopular in certain circles, right? Anytime we post, we have like, you have those little like additional comments bit. Click on that. There'll always be some kind of hate. Go on our comments on YouTube, especially on bigger videos, or if we've slandered Verstappen, and there's always some kind of hate. Let me tell you now, I'll tell you something that I tell everyone that knows me knows. I love hate. Like, hate drives me so much. Oh, I love it when we get back on mental and I'm getting quote tweeted. I'm like, you know what? If you're annoyed at me now, just wait for the next thing I do, and wait for the fact that you will constantly see my face. So if I was a driver, I'd be like, oh, you don't like me? I'll be on the podium again. I'll be winning races. Don't you worry. And I think you have to have that mentality as a driver. Look, there's who hasn't won a race? Hulkenberg, for example, right? Very popular driver, never won a race, never spoken out of turn unless, you're Kevin Magnussen. But he would give his left arm to have, let's say, the career of a multiple race winner who isn't as popular. So as long as I'm not unpopular for like illegal or like really morally corrupt reasons, I'll take the race wins all day. I want to taste that champagne, baby.
Do you know what? I would love to see a driver that had that sort of energy. Like, people cannot like certain drivers that are successful, but you never see those drivers play up to it and say, I don't care if I'm the villain. I'm going to be the best villain
like
going.
Max plays up to it,
I think he tries to rubbish it off like he just doesn't care.
Yeah,
like it doesn't bother him. I get that. I think that's a fair way of putting it. But he doesn't, like, for example, not to name this person because it's a different sport, but do you know how Novak Djokovic, Australian Open final, anyone that watched that, throughout his whole career, people don't like him compared to Nadal or Federer. He's just, for whatever reason, he's not popular. And of course, you can speculate on why that is. But the guy loves it when people heckles him. Yeah, he has a go at you, but then he'll go and win the next 3 sets and deal with it. I'm the champ. Like that kind of energy. We don't see that in Formula One. So I agree with Max to an extent, but I don't think we get that, oh, I love the hate kind of energy. Feed me that because I want to prove you wrong.
Almost like there's no pantomime villains in F1, right? Like someone who almost like you love to hate, right? Because I feel like with Djokovic, people love to hate him, and that's the role that he's taken, and that's his role in tennis. Kyrgios to a degree as well, right? Like he knows that there's people that love him, but there's also people that really don't like him. Again, you can speculate for your own reasons why as to why that is, but I think it's I think F1, if we really want to get into it, the personality side of F1 is quite stifled. I guess you've got the sponsor commitments and just the general, the type of person that would get into F1, I guess, it'd be nice to see like a pantomime villain in F1, considering it is a massive pantomime anyway. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they call it the world's biggest traveling circus for a reason.
They do actually, don't they? I love it when Martin Brundle says that.
Yeah, it's very much an old cliche that I feel like gets lost over time, and perhaps we need to keep bringing that back so that when Martin does decide to hang up his headphones and mic, that it's still there to a degree. But we'll see.
There's so many Martin Brundle phrases that I love. Oh, what did I say the other day? And no one even knew it because they didn't watch F1. I think I was like, never in a month of Sundays.
Oh yeah, and, I love that one.
During and like, you gotta treat the back of the car like the hind legs of a donkey.
Yes,
there's so many things he says that I like. I love mine.
I like the one where he goes when he's describing oversteer. It's like if the rear end overtakes you, then you've had it. Pretty much just how to describe oversteer in a car. But no, and I agree. I mean, we used to sort of reminisce over the late Sir Murray Walker's brilliant Murrayisms. And Martin's got many of his own as well. And I think we'll probably reminisce on those equally when, as I said, when Martin retires. But hopefully not anytime soon.
It's a sad day.
Yeah, very sad day.
Hopefully not anytime soon, man, because he's the best in the business by a long way. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So next question we've got. Would you rather be a number 2 driver with a championship winning car, but with virtually no chance of winning the title, Perez, or a number sorry, Perez fans, but a number 1 driver in a car that can get the odd podium, but not enough to fight for a title. So kind of like, as I said, jokingly, Perez in the Red Bull at the moment, or a Lando Norris situation, if you like.
God, that's a tough one, isn't it? I think Perez has got, he won, what, 3 times last year? Maybe
Yeah, that's
twice?
about right. I think it was twice. Yeah, he won in
Twice, right? Yeah, he won
Singapore
twice.
and
Singapore,
Monaco.
Monaco. Yeah, well done. Great knowledge. So I think Perez, having been someone who was a number one driver in a car that got podiums, in the Force India and the Racing Point, he left. Well, he didn't leave. He actually got fired from Racing Point, and then he found Red Bull. But I think Perez would say that the occasional race win is better than the occasional podium. So with Lando, I feel sorry for Lando because where does Lando Norris go right now? It feels like F1's locked in for a long time even at the point where Hamilton retires, George is there. George is pretty much, they're never going to put Lando and George in the same team. That would be absolute fireworks.
I'd
That's
love to
Rosberg,
see it though.
Hamilton. Pardon? Oh, I would like to see that.
I'd wonder though, like if we're not that we're going off topic a little bit here, but I
Yeah.
would wonder if Toto Wolff would be tempted to do that. I mean, purely and simply because, with George Russell, that element with Lewis Hamilton, okay, people will say without context that George beat Lewis last year. Fair enough. But of course, we all know that, Sir Lewis, he was hampered a little bit by how 2021 ended. Not that we're going to go down that rabbit hole again, but there's a lot of caveats at play there. And George did a great job, but I do feel that he does need to wrestle that throne away from Sir Lewis at Mercedes rather than wait for Lewis to retire off into the sunset and really then prove that he's the future. I think that's what Mercedes want to a degree. And with Lando, potentially, if he came into that seat, that could be an element like Rosberg Hamilton was like, right, I need one of you to be the leader of this team going forward where Lewis left off. Show me who it's going to be. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
Wow. You know what? When you put it like that, I think that is, I've never heard anyone put it like that. I'm not going to lie to you. And it's so right. And I'm probably going to use it and
it's yours, mate.
I'm going to use it and act like I came up with it. But no, it's such a good point, right? Because I think we all assume that George is just the heir to the throne. And even if he finishes behind Lewis, like the next 2 years, 3 years, however long, that, they'll get a number 2 driver because they've invested so much in him. But a talent like Lando Norris, if he says I want out from Mercedes, why wouldn't Red Bull pick him up? And there's no reason why they couldn't. It does, and I guess it's up to Lando whether he wants to go into that team, whether he thinks he's good enough to make that team his own. Ferrari, science isn't going to be there forever. Potentially Charles, I feel like Charles is pretty much locked in there. So, yeah, it's interesting to see. I think Lando's next choice of driver will be interesting. But going back to your question, I'd rather have a race-winning car that I won in a couple times a season than a podium car that I got podiums in maybe 4 or 5 times a season.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. I love talking to guests with great will knowledge. It's always sometimes I forget I'm doing a show half the time, but
this has been really nice, man.
This is why you guys should set up F1 podcasts. You meet so many great people and have a great time. You forget you're even doing it. But no, great. So okay, we'll move on to the next one. Would you rather be a one-win wonder but only win your home race in your F1 career, or would you rather win multiple races but never win at home?
Do I win a championship?
No. I mean, you'd have to, I'm going to say, because that might entice you a bit too much.
Yeah. So basically, like, I'm trying to think, like, would I want, like, Daniel Ricciardo's career or Who's only ever won? Like Johnny
Well,
Herbert or
Johnny's
something.
won of 2 races, I think. But I
Two,
think for
isn't
the
he?
benefit of the arguments, I'm thinking
Yeah.
Silverstone 95 when he won that
Yeah.
race.
Silverstone. Where else did he win? Was it Germany?
Yeah, well, it was the European Grand Prix in
European Grand
99
Prix.
at the
That was it.
time, but
Yeah.
obviously Luxembourg, Germany, all the political stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, it's a good question. Because I do like a bit of cult status. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I do, I feel like just the way that I am kind of engineered, the idea of winning my home race and it being the only race I've won sounds incredible. Rather than like multiple, then do you feel unfulfilled anyway? You know what? Yeah, just to go against the grain, I'm gonna say I would have. I think the feeling of winning your home race is just something that must be as an F1 driver, and for it to be your only win. So it's such a special win. It's your first win, whether that win's taken ages or whether you get it off the rip. Like it's going to be such a special day. So I'm gonna go with what, one win, home race. Fuck it. Oh,
Yeah.
apologies.
That's right. They always let us have one. Don't worry. No, do you know what, Nyasha? Honestly, I love the way the drivers you brought up, Ricardo and Johnny Herbert, because that's exactly who I was thinking of. And everyone loves Johnny, for his work with Sky F1. It's a shame that he's not going to be a part of it this season, which
Such a
is.
shame.
But that cult hero status, winning at Silverstone, despite the fact he won another race, but that equally both of those races, he achieved cult status for them in different ways. And 95, obviously very, very young. I wouldn't have remembered much of it if at all. But watching it back, the story was Schumacher versus Hill, and it was almost the equivalent of Hamilton Verstappen. How bitter that rivalry got.
Yeah.
And Johnny just came out of nowhere when those two floundered and won that race, and he was a hero overnight. So I would love to ask Danny Rick that question, and I wouldn't be surprised if he said he'd give up all of his 8 F1 wins for that one at Melbourne.
I think he would. I honestly, if I'm being, I reckon, someone needs to put that to him. Because that's an excellent question, and I think he would personally, for sure.
Yeah, well, it's like when they asked Seb would he trade his 4 Red Bull titles for one at Ferrari, and he was saying no, probably not. But but I thought to myself, yes, you would, Seb. Don't lie to us. Yes, you would.
Yeah,
but
I feel like
it is what it is. Okay, so next one. I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, if you don't mind. So I want to try and take you back in a time machine. Now, you guys listening on this audio podcast, this will be a lot easier. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can close your eyes while I tell the story a little bit. So bear with me, guys. So, Nyasha, I'm taking you in a time machine to Abu Dhabi 2021.
Oof.
I know, controversial. I said it would be. I'm giving you, despite everything the FIA has done and all the powers that be and all the rules and stipulation, all that rubbish, I'm giving you the power to void lap 58. And of course, by doing so, you allow Sir Lewis Hamilton to win his 8th world title, eclipsing anything any other driver has ever done or likely will do, and cement himself as an even bigger GOAT than he currently already is.
Before you carry on, there better be a mammoth of a question on the other side, because I'm about to do that now.
Yeah, fair enough. So I've given you that power, but by doing so, Sir Lewis Hamilton retires the next day as he's achieved everything he wants to do. And then that allows Max Verstappen to go on and eclipse Sir Lewis's records by the end of his career. Do you do that or leave the result, despite how controversial it was, leave it alone? But it means that Sir Lewis carries on despite not winning another title, but it also means that Max Verstappen will not surpass Sir Lewis's records by the time he is done. Which one are you doing?
Let me tell you now, I'm a hater. So anything to stop the thought of Verstappen getting that record is would be so like, for example, let's say if Lewis doesn't win another title and Max ends up winning 8, I'd be so sad. And it would make me so sad, knowing as well that Lewis could have got 8 and that Max has one that Lewis should have. It would make me really sad. So I'm a hater at heart, and so I will do anything to ensure Verstappen doesn't have that title. So no, that's fine. I'll use all the rhetoric that all the F1 journalists did. Like, you know what? We can't just do it. If a referee makes a bad decision, we can't change it. So I'll go with that. But it's just Yeah, it's crazy. No, and I think also as well, I want as much time supporting Lewis as possible. And you know what? Maybe he might have retired after 2021. You know, we don't know. He would have done what he set out to do, or set out to do, but he would have done what he clearly saw was on the horizon. You know, he's got all of his outside of projects, and you know, he could have retired. So I think for me, just having I want as much time with Lewis as possible, and you know, the day that he retires is going to be, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself, honestly. Like, I'm probably going to have to take time off work and
Yeah.
but it's just like, for me, like, I think I grew up watching F1. My first driver was Schumacher, and I think I was a bit too, I mean, I was like 18 when he retired. But I didn't really, you know, I love Schumacher, but not on the level that I love Lewis. And I think, you know, I remember when, you know, Thierry Henry left Arsenal, for example, and I remember being quite sad about that. I remember being really sad about Cesc leaving. Like, that was bad.
Oh, it's painful.
That was pain. That, I think that, you know, Cesc was bad. Van Persie, like, I've had heartache with sports people, but it won't. None of that will compare to Lewis, and yeah. So more time with Lewis. Max doesn't get more titles. Sounds like a win-win for me.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, I felt that when Michael retired in '06, and, you know, growing up being a huge Schumacher fan at the time, it does get better, but it's never quite the same. New champions emerge, new favourites emerge. Of course, you know, when Michael retired, Sir Lewis turned up, and, you know, it was amazing. But yeah, no, I can only try and prep you as best as I can for how that's going to feel, mate. But honestly, it will never be the same.
I'll be calling you like, please guide me through this.
It's like, short answer is I can't. Unfortunately, it's not going to get any better. But you will cope. F1 will carry on.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But who knows? You know, Sir Lewis will go on for many years to come, hopefully. He seems to have that hunger. But
Like you just said, today he's very hungry, so hopefully.
Exactly. But it sounds like, judging from your answer, without me paraphrasing, because of what's at stake, we're not voiding lap 58, as tempting as that may have been.
You're putting words in my mouth, but yeah, that's
I'm not going to clip that, don't worry.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I love it. No,
Yeah.
that's a real, wow. I must say, I'm going to say to you, like, this is one of my favorite podcasts I've ever been on. This has been lovely, man.
Oh, thanks, mate. Thank you.
I love these questions. I've never thought about Formula One like this before, so this is really enjoyable.
Honestly, as a fan of your work, and it sounds like right now people's probably listening to this thinking, Nyasha, just get a room already. But no, honestly, absolutely loving what you guys do. So I really appreciate that. We'll move on to the next question before more of our listeners turn off this new love fest that's building right now. Okay, so I'm going to give you another scenario. Your career lasts 100 races in F1. Would you rather finish on the podium in every single race that you compete in, but never win a world championship? Or would you rather never finish on the podium, but you win your final F1 race?
First one.
Oh, okay. You like the series?
No. Second one.
Second one.
Second one.
Okay.
Second one, definitely. I mean, I guess 100 podiums is that puts you like what, behind Lewis basically. How many podiums does Schumacher have?
I think it's over 100 if you count the wins as well, because I know some people get iffy with podiums and wins. So Michael's definitely up. I think Seb is close to 100 podiums if you include the wins.
But, I mean, that record doesn't mean anything unless you hold it. So unless I have the record for podiums, I guess that's the thing, that you'd have the record for podiums without a win. That is not a record you want.
No,
so I would rather, on my last race, 100 races, and I cross the line in my last race, and I win in my last race, my 100th race.
At home.
I already told you I'll take one home win over 8. So, I mean,
that's the one you're getting, mate. That's the one you're getting.
So now 100%, I'll take a 100th race home win for sure. 100%.
Yeah. Do you know what? I would too. And I agree. Obviously, you know, I'd have to take some interior design tips off Sir Lewis on where I'd put all those trophies. But do you know what? That one win, the Maldonado, you know, that would do me.
I just think it might, like, obviously we're not, you know, sports people, you can always think like, I could have been better here, could have done more there. But I don't know, man. I feel like that release and that joy. You know when Button won his first race, right?
Yeah, was it Hungary 04 or
Hungary,
Hungary 04, Hungary 06? One of those.
yeah, one of
Yeah.
those, right? Pardon me. Pardon me. The wait for that win and all the times he'd nearly done it, and the unexpected nature of it, and you could see it in his face, and the celebrations with his late father. Like, you can't buy memories like that. Of course, like podiums are great, but race wins, so many people go through their whole F1 career, they never win a race. So to be able to win a race, I think is just incredible.
Well, you
Incredible.
remember those moments, didn't you? I mean, we joked about Maldonado, but everyone remembers that race,
Yeah.
Spain 2012, the way he,
Yeah.
in a car that should have been in the midfield, but he held off Fernando Alonso in the Ferrari, who was fighting for a championship at the time,
Championship.
brilliantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody remembers that weekend. And
100.
everyone remembers Maldonado's GOAT status. You don't even have to watch his crash compilations on YouTube for that.
No.
That's just a bonus.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the final question. Would you rather have a 15-year Formula One career with Mercedes, but win 0 world championships? Or would you rather win a world championship in your rookie season, and just because it's you, it's going to be at Red Bull, and then retire the next day after one season?
How many races do I win?
As many as you want. All of them, obviously not enough to win a world championship
Not
in the
enough to win a
Mercedes
world
years, but
championship. That's a lot of heartache.
yeah.
15 years of heartache. No, I'll take one season. I'll take one season with the devil and
Fair
then
enough.
go and repent for my sins.
The ultimate Rosberg season, pretty much.
Basically. I mean, and because that's also history as well. Who's got one title first season and then gone? Like,
well, it was almost Lewis, wasn't it? He nearly did it.
Almost. God, it would have been history. So yeah, I just think no. I think one season I'm a world champion, and then I just go off and do whatever I want to do, I guess, and live my life, and yeah, do a Rosberg style YouTube channel, I guess.
Well, you're already halfway there, so you just got to win a world title now.
Just need the car.
Well, if there's a W11 going, then I'll let you know. But no, do you know what? Obviously, some of those answers are great, Nyasha. And I think from what I've learned from putting those questions to you is that you may not necessarily want to be there for a long time. You'd want to be there and have a good time. You want to cement that legacy rather than just going through the motions and being there longer than your welcome has been worn out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really good way of describing how I live life. Like, even with the podcast, like, I'm not here to try and get on Sky Sports or use this as a platform to do other things. Like, I want to do this in the way that I'm doing it, and I don't care if loads of people listen to it. I'm going to do it because I want to do it, and we'll have fun with it, and we'll see where it goes. And I think that's just how I kind of view things. I'm not a massive mainstream kind of guy. So cult status all day.
Yeah, absolutely love that. But obviously, I think that's all we got time for, guys. Hope you enjoyed playing along at home. Let us know your answers, of course, to some of those questions, what you would like to do if you agree with Nyasha or if you decided to go differently. Let us know in the comment section. But Nyasha, of course, absolutely thrilled to have you on the show. Really appreciate you giving up your time. Obviously, a big fan of Quick Stop Podcast. So for me, absolute pleasure talking to you. And honestly, one of my favourite podcasts I've ever done on this show.
Mate,
absolutely love talking
awesome.
to you.
We need to get you on our show at some point, okay? I'll message you.
Oh, I'd love that, honestly. I will try my best to, although might not necessarily agree, but that's what F1's all about, mate.
Let's disagree. That's absolutely fine.
That's it. Perfect. Love it. But obviously, Nyasha, before you sign off, we've got to give you an opportunity to plug your show and your content as well, whether you're still keeping up with the cooking content as well. I know on the socials you do dabble a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, no, actually, I've retired. I've officially retired from the chef game to concentrate on F1. So you can catch me, Quick Stop F1 is where you can catch the podcast on all platforms: TikTok, Insta, YouTube, and obviously Twitter. And if you search Quick Stop F1 into any podcast what do they call them? Platform. Then you can find us there. And quickstopf1.com if you're looking for any merch. We've got some cool stuff over there and some cool stuff coming out. So yeah, that's it.
Love it, love it. And you guys still keeping up the Twitch streams as well?
You know what? No. No, you know what? I'll be honest, man. We took the Twitch deal. I don't know how to put this. It's just not for us. And I think live, how do I put this? For me, I don't see live as for me personally, I think the live wave is, or the way that we view live content personally, I think is not, live is not conducive to growth. And what I would say is going live, you don't grow as you're going live. How you go bigger from live is taking your content and breaking it down for YouTube shorts, or even just sections on your YouTube, on TikTok, Instagram. That's a lot of work. And they wanted us to go live 20 hours a month.
Oh, that's a lot.
It's a lot. And I did 1 month and I said, nope, like, I'm not doing it anymore.
Well, I mean, if you don't mind me saying, when you break it down like that, I mean, you know, if you do race reviews, race previews, and you did them every single week of a month, you still probably wouldn't be able to fill that 20 hours, probably just about half.
You need more, yeah. So it was just a lot, and like, we kind of went into. I kind of left it because I was like, look, it made me. It was a big reason why I ended up burning out last season. Why we haven't done that many podcasts since the end of the season. You know, we had the live show, and then we were releasing merch, and everything just got on top. So it just got to a point where I was like, it was a nice thing for Twitch to reach out and be like, would you like to do this? But you know, it just wasn't right for us as a platform. And I think you're going to see a lot more short form content from us, YouTube content. And I think we're going to go down that route. And if we go live, it's going to be like short segments, us going live to promote merch, do giveaways and just have fun. And I think in terms of like F1 content, live just doesn't suit our platform, but it does suit other platforms. You know, I'm good friends with Cameron F1 and Jay from Wolfpack. They both do really good live content. Break does great live content. You know, some people it works for and some people it doesn't. And I think for us, it just wasn't right.
No, absolutely. And it's a lot of work. Of course, you know, for us guys doing full-time jobs on top of this, it's just a ridiculous undertaking. But of course, if it works, it works. That's most
That's it.
thing.
And we tried it and it didn't work. And then we move on.
There you go.
You know, that's some things will work out, some things don't. You don't know until you try it. So
And to be perfectly honest, I think the way that you guys are going about your business is absolutely brilliant anyway. I mean, the shorts is a great idea. We've dabbled in that a little bit. Admittedly, that's something that we've got to do more of because we've received a lot of positive feedback on that. So we need to try and do more of that this year. If
I can give you any advice to any podcaster, get your video right. Even if you're only audio, create videos using memes and videos or whatever. And you know, that's how we grew. Like, we grew because our video content, our shorts were great. And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have grown nearly half as much, I think, as we have. So that's my advice to anyone. Just get your videos right.
Brilliant stuff. Guys, as always, thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you have enjoyed this and you're following us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and make sure to like the video. Helps us get out and reach out to many people that are new to the DNF1 family. Of course, if you are new to the show, listening on your favorite audio platform, you can give us a 5-star review if you think that we are worthy. But if you do this on Spotify, do let us know because they don't tell us. So
yeah, they don't.
No, and we want to give shout outs to people. But obviously, if you do this on Apple and iTunes or any other pod platform that tells us, then we'll be happy to give you a shout out on the next show as our way of saying thanks. Of course, we'll leave in the show notes the links to Quickstop and all of their stuff, and obviously Nyasha's socials as well. But until then, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. In the next episode, we are going to be doing a little bit of a review of the new liveries, and I would say cars, but we've only seen seen one new car from 2023. And I think I mentioned the other day, Nyasha, when Alpha did their launch, it took about 13 minutes before we saw the car. It's been about 4 or 5 days now. We still haven't seen the Red Bull RB19 yet.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised that launch isn't still going, to be honest. So,
it probably is. We might have all just logged off.
So yeah, I mean, I can't wait for testing, man. Like, let's see the cars.
Yeah.
We need to see the cars.
Absolutely, mate. But of course, we'll be talking about that in our next episode, and of course, what each team we feel needs to improve for 2023. But until then, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please stay safe, and we will see you in the next episode of the DNF1 F1 podcast. And remember, as always, if you're not first, you'll probably be DNF1. Take care.